Exposed. Al Capone's hidden struggles as a dad discover the incredible lessons in family love. In the smoke-filled alleyways of 1920 Chicago, young Tommy Capone, just 12 years old, carried the weight of his father's infamous name like a heavy anchor. The towering buildings cast long shadows, wrapping him in whispers and jeers from the neighborhood kids. "Look, it's little Al," they would taunt, eyes filled with scorn. With every name called, Tommy felt his dreams of carving out his own identity crumble into dust. He wandered the sidewalks littered with broken bottles and lost dreams, yearning for the acceptance that always seemed just out of reach at a home. Al Capone was a looming figure, a protector wrapped in high walls and iron bars, hardly present when it mattered most. Tommy watched as his father, in all his power, became a phantom in his life, more comfortable with gangsters than sharing laughter at the dinner table. There were nights when Al would come home bruised and bloodied, frightening Tommy with the darkness of his world. Al wore his love as armor, believing that burying his family in wealth would shield them from the chaos outside. But Tommy, deep down, just wanted his dad to be there to hear him out, to tell him stories that didn't involve crime and fear. Anyone can be a gangster, but it takes a man to be a father, Tommy thought, frustration boiling within him. There was so much his father didn't see a boy struggling under the pressure of being someone he wasn't. Alone on the crumbling streets, Tommy felt the tension rise. Day after day, he wrestled with feelings of anger, torn between loving his father and hating the life he led. Just when darkness seemed to engulf them, rival gang members threatened their relative safety, and the Capone family had to rely on their neighbors. Voices echoed in the night, murmuring support, friendship blooming amidst the urban decay. Tommy discovered that even in the gritty lanes of Chicago, there was beauty in community, love that transcended gang loyalty. When it happened, he began to share his silent battles with kids in his neighborhood, revealing he was more than a name. It was cathartic, creating bonds he didn't know he needed. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Courage swelled in Tommy's heart. It was time to confront Al, and the stakes felt higher than ever, the air thick with tension. "Do you love me, Dad? Or is it just fear that guides you?" he had said. Those words hung in the heavy air, drawing out the tangible pain etched in both their faces. The silence was deafening, the streets around them pulsing with life. Yet they felt like they were the only two people in the world. Al began to crack open his stoic facade, revealing fears and regrets. Tommy realized the true battle lay within. Hope flickered amidst the shadows of their lives. Could they pave a new road together? What price would they pay to redeem their family bond? The question echoed in Tommy's heart, the weight of their fractured legacy pulling at him. As they stood together, it was clear that redemption is messy, layered beneath the breath of desperation and fierce love. With their fate on a knife's edge, one thing lingered: could love outshine the darkness that bound them? The silence stretched on between them, a chasm filled with unspoken fears and dreams that were yet to take form. Tommy could see the approach of tears welling in his father's eyes, a sight he had never dared to hope for. Girls and boys from the neighborhood drifted past, pausing to glance at the Capone house, curiosity in their eyes, but no one dared to intrude. This moment belonged solely to them. Al finally said, his voice breaking, "I never thought this life would cost me my family." His words came out heavy, like stones tossed into a still pond, creating ripples that spread through the air between them. Tommy's heart raced. This was a crack in his father's armor, revealing the man beneath the crime boss. "Dad, it doesn't have to be this way." He took a step closer, emboldened by his newfound courage. "You can change. We can change." But Al wasn't convinced. He looked at the sidewalk, his mind racing with thoughts of loyalty to the gang, to the code that had always defined him. "The world doesn't make it easy, son." You think I chose this life for us? I did it to keep you safe. Safe? But all you do is push me away. Tommy shot back, pain splintering his voice. Why can't you see that your strength comes from being there for us, not just with money and power? The truth hung in the air, thick as the smoke swirling from the nearby factory. Al's shoulders slumped, the weight of years and choices lifting for just a moment. I never thought I'm afraid, Tommy. Afraid that I'll lose you, too. I thought keeping you away from this world would be enough. Tommy sighed, feeling the heat of tears behind his own eyes. But it's not enough. I need you. We need each other, Dad. He could hear the flickers of the night-distant sirens, laughter spilling from local taverns, the resilience of his community resonating like a heartbeat in the background. For once, Tommy felt they were part of something larger than themselves and that it was not too late to become more than his father's legacy of crime. Suddenly, Al stepped back, like he had retreated to his familiar persona, the intimidating gangster who commanded respect. Don't get too close, Tommy. You don't want to be part of this mess. Why not? Tommy said defiantly. Because I might get hurt? Because it's scary? Life is scary, Dad. Being your son is scary. But it's also beautiful, full of moments worth fighting for. The tenacity in his voice shocked Al, causing him to falter just a moment longer. Tommy's heart raced as he sensed a change, a vulnerability that stemmed from a long-neglected fatherly instinct. Just then, a memory surged in Tommy's mind. A quiet moment shared when his dad had read him a story about heroes who fought for their families, not out of fear but love. Remember that time you told me about heroes, Dad? The ones who protect others, not just themselves. Tommy pleaded, locking eyes. Who do you want to be? The gangster everyone fears, or the father I need? For the first time, Al looked at his son not as a mini version of himself, but as a person, a boy yearning for connection. Tommy's breath trembled as he watched Al wrestle with his emotions, feeling the tension pull at their bond. Would Al rise to this challenge, or would he build walls higher than ever? As night deepened around them, the questions in their hearts remained unanswered. Tommy bit his lip, knowing that whatever came next would decide the fate of their relationship. Would they step into the unknown together, or would Al retreat back into his comfort zone? With every passing moment, the anticipation loomed larger, and Tommy realized this was just the beginning of a much tougher battle, one that would examine not just their relationship, but the man Al had become. Would Al make a choice to embrace the risky, vulnerable love that could truly redeem them both? The air felt electric, thick with unsaid words and tangled emotions. Al's gaze shifted from Tommy to the cracked pavement, as if contemplating the weight of his past choices. Moments stretched, and a sliver of uncertainty crossed his rugged features. Tommy, Al started, his voice barely above a whisper. The confidence that usually filled the room seemed to shrink as he battled with his own demons. You think it's that easy for me? I've made promises. To the family, to the business. I can't just walk away. Then don't walk away, Tommy urged, stepping forward again. Fight for us instead. Fight to be the man you want to be. He could see the walls that Al had built around himself starting to crack, but the fear was still there, lurking behind his father's ashamed eyes. Do you have any idea what that would mean? Al's fists clenched, a slight tremor betraying the hardened gangster facade. I'd have to give up everything. The respect, the power. Respect? From whom? Tommy's voice rose, fueled by a mixture of anger and sadness. Respect from people who only fear you. That's not real respect, Dad. Real respect comes from love and honesty, something you haven't shown us in years. A warmth spread through the pit of Tommy's stomach, both from frustration and from hope. Maybe this was the moment, maybe these words could shatter the icy grip around his father's heart. He could almost see Al's mind wrestling with each choice, like a ship caught in a storm, swaying between duty and desire. Around them, the neighborhood took on a softer hue. Lights glinted off the old houses, and the laughter from the taverns seemed to draw closer, a cheerful reminder of a life outside the shadows. Young couples strolled by, sharing dreams and aspirations, blissfully unaware of the battle raging just a few steps away. Remember the first time you took me fishing? Tommy's voice fell to a murmur, drawing memories from a different time. You showed me how to catch the biggest fish, not just the little ones. You told me it was about patience, waiting for the right moment. Fishing, Al echoed, his brows furrowing as he searched the depths of his own mind. I remember I had so much hope for you that day. Then let us find that hope again. Together, Tommy urged, feeling the swell of determination rising within him. If you take the risk to change, I promise I'll be right there with you. I'll fight alongside you. Al took a deep breath, the weight of decisions hanging in the balance. The moonlight cast shadows across his face, illuminating the struggle within. He looked at his son with a mix of fear and longing, as if seeing him for the first time not as the son who would follow in his footsteps, but as a person brimming with potential. For a moment, everything felt still. The world around them faded into the background. Al Capone stood at the crossroads of his life, and Tommy's unyielding faith shimmered in the dark. Then, slowly, Al's shoulders eased just a fraction. I don't know if I can do this. Tommy, it's all so complicated. Then let us make it simple, Tommy replied, reaching forward, drawn by the magnetic pull of their connection. Be honest about your fears. Let yourself be seen. Let me see you, Dad. That essay start. The silence felt alive, pulsating between them, with the promise of change glowing faintly in the distance. But just as hope lifted their spirits, the familiar thrum of a car engine roared down the street. Tommy's heart raced, knowing their moment was teetering on the edge of disruption. Tommy, listen, Al began, but the sound of tires screeching pulled their focus. A black sedan stopped at the curb, engine still running. The weight of reality crashed back onto their shoulders like a tidal wave. Dad! Tommy hissed, eyes darting towards the approaching figures. Al stiffened, the hardened gangster slipping back into place. Get inside, Tommy. No. Tommy's voice shook, standing his ground. This isn't over. The shadows loomed larger as the figures emerged from the sedan, and an unmistakable dread pooled in Tommy's stomach. Who were they? What did they want? As uncertainty swirled, moments of vulnerability collided with the impending threat. Would Al stand firm as his father, or would the gangster take control once more? The stakes were suddenly raised, leaving Tommy with one burning question. Could the love they were just beginning to open up to survive this unexpected storm? Everything about the scene felt heavy. The car's engine sputtered a low, ominous growl as the figures advanced, shaping like shadows stretched long by the streetlights. Tommy's heart thudded against his ribcage, a harsh reminder of the danger they found themselves in. Each movement felt like it was measured, an instinct, a choice. Stay back, Al warned, his voice hardening again. The warmth that had briefly melted the ice between them evaporated. Al was slipping back into the role he knew best. The gangster was there, defenses masked, ready to protect what he thought mattered most. This isn't your fight. Tommy shook his head, desperation washing over him. He wasn't just looking at Al the gangster anymore. He was seeing his father. Please, Dad. You don't have to handle this alone. He wished he could make Al see that fighting back didn't always mean involving fists and blood. Sometimes, it was about facing fear with love. Two men emerged from the sedan, sharp suits and sharper grins riding their faces. It was a common scene in the life Al had built, but Tommy felt a new fear creeping into his heart. One step forward and they were too close, leaning on the threat of their presence. Al, one of them called, voice smooth as silk, we need to have a talk. Al's eyes narrowed, tension radiating off him like heat. What do you want? Just a little chat about your operations, the second man replied, his smile hardly disguising the menace coiling beneath his words. You've strayed, and it's about time we reminded you of that. The energy around them shifted, thick as a fog, and Tommy could feel the urgency pulse between them. Here was a moment where the past met the present, decisions made long ago colliding with the hope for something better. Look, I'm busy, Al began, but Tommy stepped closer to him, an act of defiance. He couldn't let his father slip away again, not when they had just started to peel back layers of distance. Do you have to do this here? Now? With him? Stay out of this, kid, the first man sneered, glancing at Tommy with disdain. You think you understand the way the world works? You think you know better than your old man? Shut up, Tommy shouted, the frustration boiling over. You don't know anything about my dad. He has more than just this. He gestured wildly, anger and fear merging. He has a father who is trying to change. Al turned his gaze from the men to his son. Confusion layered with something deeper, maybe regret. The tension between them crackled as Tommy's words hung in the air. Tommy could see it in Al's face. The tumult within was palpable. Yes, right, Al finally said, projecting his voice over the tense atmosphere. I'm trying. But you don't get it. Words flew out like bullets. A mix of anger and vulnerability. You think you can just waltz in here and tell me how to handle my life? Is that what you think? Tommy's heart raced as his father's anger tangled with pain. I just want you to see there's another way. You don't have to keep hiding behind the power. Al shot back, his voice a growl now. This isn't about power, Tommy. This is survival. You think I want this life? That I chose it? The men watching them exchanged glances, amusement flickering in their eyes. They were predators, enjoying the struggle unfolding before them. Just leave us alone, Tommy pleaded, staring into his father's eyes, begging him to understand. Don't let them take you back. Enough, the first of the men barked. We're not here for a family reunion. Al's face hardened again, processing Tommy's plea against the threat looming over them. He realized, in that moment, that he was standing on the edge. Would he choose the legacy of fear, or could he step into the unknown perhaps with his son by his side? The air buzzed with uncertainty as the men took a step closer. We're not finished here, Al, they warned. But there it was again, that thread of hope. The spark Tommy had ignited within his father. He felt it strong, a heartbeat they could nurture instead of extinguish. Just as he was about to reach out to Al again, a flash of lights caught his. Tommy. Al's voice cut through the chaos, and Tommy turned in time to see a police car pulling into the street. A glimmer of wild hope surged within him. Was this the momentum they needed? Run, Al shouted, and in that instant, it shifted. The protective instinct surged back again, a father ready to shield his son. But would Al have the strength to embrace the change Tommy had offered, or would the gangster within consume him once more as he faced the desperate gamble of fatherhood? The moment felt electric with possibilities, leaving Tommy with one question echoing in his mind. Could he pull his father back from the brink? Or would this be the moment they lost each other forever? The police car's headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the faces of the men like a spotlight on the stage of a horror show. For a brief moment, the tension felt like it could snap. Tommy's heart thudded louder than the blaring sirens. He turned back to Al, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. Go, Al shouted again. But this time there was a tremor in his voice, a glimpse of hesitation. In that split second, that one heartbeat, Tommy saw something shift. For years, he felt like nothing but an afterthought in Al's world. Yet now, their destinies felt like they intertwined. Not without you, Tommy yelled. He refused to let fear rule him anymore. Al was not just a figure of power. He was his father, a person fighting demons Tommy could understand in a way that made him ache inside. Damn it, Tommy, Al cursed, the weight of the world crashing on his shoulders. Those sharp suits and twisted smiles creeped closer, closing the gap and straining Al's resolve. Could he really leave everything behind? In the split-second chaos, the men turned their attention to the flashing lights. Their amusement vanished, replaced by irritation. You're making a big mistake here, Al, one of them hissed. It's not just you we take things from. That cruel whisper struck Tommy like a knife. What do you mean? He demanded, stepping forward even as Al pulled him back firmly. They know how to get to you, Al replied coolly, addressing not just the men but also the storm brewing in his own heart. But this isn't just about me anymore. If I walk away, his voice faltered momentarily, caught between fear for Tommy's safety and the life he'd built on the street. The men chuckled darkly. You think they'll let you just walk out? You think you can change? You're not that lucky. Tommy implored. You can change. You want to try, right? Don't let them decide your fate. It felt like a mantra, a battle cry for the possibility that lingered just out of reach. Then a new sound joined the chaotic mix of uncertainty. The crackle of a police radio, blaring through the air. "This is Officer Morrow. We got reports of a disturbance on the corner of 5th and Main. All units, please respond." That broke through the fog for Al. "It's now or never," he shouted, determination sparking to life. He took one step toward the advancing figures and one back toward Tommy, a man caught between two worlds. "Stay close," he ordered, eyes narrowing on those hounding them. "I won't let them take you." As they dashed toward the police car, adrenaline pumping, glimmers of hope danced in Tommy's heart. Ali was finally choosing something different. The men surged forward, desperation etched on their faces. "Al, you can't just leave." One lunged, but the police car's doors burst open, and uniformed officers poured out, shouting commands. "Get on the ground. Hands up." The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Tommy locked eyes with Al. It was a moment of clarity, the kind of moment people wished they'd seized before it slipped away. "Trust me," Al whispered. Tommy nodded, feeling the warmth of resolution settle over him. The officers stepped in, a barrier of authority protecting them. But as bodies collided, something deep within Tommy trembled with worry. Would this truly be their escape or the start of a new threat? As Al clasped Tommy's shoulder and they fled into the chaotic scene, the men started to scatter, realizing their grip on Al was quickly slipping away. But the adrenaline rush didn't mask the truth: they weren't out of danger yet. Their past lurked like a shadow, always threatening to drag them back in. Could they break free? Or would Al's old life claw its way back just as they thought they'd found an escape? The neon lights flickered painfully overhead as uncertain futures stretched before them, beckoning with unanswered questions. As they bolted toward the officers, the sound of chaos buzzed in Tommy's ears like a swarm of angry bees. Al's grip on his shoulder was firm, grounding him despite the storm swirling around them. Each step felt like a leap of faith. "Keep moving," Al shouted, urgency lacing his voice. Behind them, the men cursed and shouted, a symphony of frustration and fury. Tommy could hear the thud of footsteps, a relentless reminder that they weren't truly safe yet. The officers shouted commands, their voices cutting through the din like a knife. "Get down. We're securing the area." One officer pointed a flashlight in their direction, the beam flickering over Al and Tommy. "Are you hurt?" "No. Just get us out of here," Al shot back, the rawness of his tone filled with desperation. The police didn't have time for pleasantries. Adrenaline surged as they formed a protective wall around Al and Tommy. As they turned, the advancing figures melted into the shadows, but not without a final, bitter promise. "This isn't over, Al. We'll find you." The words hung in the air like smoke, a threat that permeated the moment and filled Tommy with dread. Around them, the officers worked quickly, ushering Al and Tommy to a nearby squad car. "Get in," one officer ordered, urgency in his voice, while others pushed back the fading shadows of danger. Tommy stumbled into the back seat, his pulse racing. He glanced at Al, who was still standing outside, a profile illuminated by the flickering lights of the squad car. The tension in Al's shoulders was palpable. "We've gotta talk," Al said, words tumbling out like confessions as he slid into the car next to Tommy. "I know," Tommy breathed, the reality of the moment washing over him like ice water. "You can't go back to that life. You need to fight. For us." Al's expression was a mix of vulnerability and determination. "I've survived on the street for too long. I can't just walk away from everything." His voice softened as he added, "But I also can't leave you behind." Tommy searched Al's eyes, desperate to find the father he'd always yearned for. "You don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. I'm with you." The weight of those words settled between them, a lifeline in a world where shadows seemed to dance just out of sight. Suddenly, one of the officers leaned in, pulling both their attention. "We need to get you two out of here. The men who were after you, they are not just going to disappear." He cleared his throat, and they both sensed that this was the tipping point. "We need a safe house arrangement. They have connections. We'll set a watch until we figure out the next steps." Fear wrapped its icy fingers around Tommy's heart once more. What if they find us? They won't. Al growled, his defiance sparking fire in his eyes. Not while I'm alive. Tommy felt a flicker of belief ignite, but doubt still clung to him like heavy fog. What did safety even look like now? Would they forever be haunted by ghosts of Alice past? As they pulled away from the chaos, the city blurred into streaks of light outside the window. The thought of what lay ahead felt like stepping off a cliff into the unknown. Would they find a way to change the narrative of their lives, or would the past keep chasing them? They were driving toward an uncertain future together, but what real change could come from a man running from his shadows? Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still yet to come. It was one thing to escape danger, but facing the truth of who they were now, that was the real battle. In the back of his mind, a question burned brightly. How many chances could one man get before the world finally caught up to him? The car moved swiftly, the sirens' wails fading until they were nothing more than a haunting echo in the distance. Inside, tension buzzed between Tommy and Al like electricity. They were safe for now, but the looming uncertainty felt palpable. Pressing against their chests, Al stared out the window, his thoughts a tangled mess. Memories of street corners and whispered regrets consumed him. He was a survivor, but the weight of survival was heavy. Tommy shifted beside him, uncertain what to say, yet desperate to bridge the growing emotional gap. Do you trust them? Tommy finally asked, breaking the uneasy silence. His voice was barely above a whisper, as if the very sound of his question could summon the danger they had just escaped. Al turned to him, searching the depths of his eyes. They're cops, kid. They're here to protect us, at least I want to believe that. Then why do you look so worried? Al let out a sharp exhale, a mix of frustration and fear. Because trusting people hasn't worked out so well for me. You don't know what it's like to lose everything. Maybe not everything, but I've lost too, Tommy replied, his voice firm yet laced with vulnerability. I lost the chance to know you, the father I needed. Hearing that cut through Al like a knife. The guilt he carried was a suffocating weight, and Tommy's words piled on top of that burden. I'm sorry, he mumbled, voice cracking slightly. I never meant for you to feel like that. Tommy shifted his gaze out the window, irked by the flux of emotions swirling inside him. His father hadn't just been absent. He had chosen a life that endangered them both. You chose your path, Dad. But now we have a shot. Together. For how long? Al shot back, the edge of despair creeping into his tone. The worries of his past painted a dark tapestry in his mind. What if we're never safe? What if they find me? The silence that fell was heavy. Tommy could feel the tears prick his eyes. Then we fight back. Together. Al felt a lump rise in his throat at that declaration. He had spent so long alone, believing it was the only way to survive. Yet, here was Tommy, a beacon of resilience and hope, pleading for something they both desperately craved. A family, a second chance. The car turned off the bustling streets and onto a quieter road lined with trees, their branches swaying gently in the night breeze. The officer behind the wheel caught sight of Al's haunted expression in the rearview mirror. We're almost there. Just hang in there. His words only deepened Al's dread. What if this safe house isn't safe? What if? But before he could finish, the car suddenly swerved, tires screeching against the pavement. Tommy grasped the door handle, heart racing as the world outside blurred into chaos again. What's happening? He shouted, panic threading through his tone. Al's instincts kicked in. He could sense danger approaching. The officer cursed under his breath, fighting to regain control of the vehicle as it careened off the road, veering into a patch of brush. Stay down, he barked, and in that split second, Al realized their battle wasn't just against shadows from the past, it was about staying alive in the present. The car came to a stop, and Al's pulse thundered in his ears. Tommy, pressed against the seat, wide-eyed, searched for answers in his father's face. Al felt as if they were on the precipice of something life-altering. Tommy, listen to me, but before he could form the words, an engine roared to life nearby, echoing ominously in the dark. They weren't just running from the past. The present had caught up in a way they never expected. "Dad, what do we do?" A question hung in the air, filled with urgency. The moment of truth had arrived, and Al knew they had to face whatever came next together. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the fight ahead. "Stay close," he said, determination hardening his voice. "Whatever happens, we stick together." The wind howled outside, mirroring the chaos threatening to unfold. Together, they were ready to confront their fate, shadows and all. But as dream and danger intertwined, would they truly be prepared for the battle to claim their lives? Tommy's heart raced as the sound of the revving engine grew louder. Al's eyes darted around, scanning for any sign of the threat they had narrowly escaped. Time seemed to stretch, every second feeling like an eternity. "Dad, what is happening?" "Are we?" Tommy's voice trembled, barely able to finish the thought. "Shoo," Al whispered, placing a reassuring hand on Tommy's knee, trying to keep his voice calm. "We need to listen." He leaned forward, straining to hear anything over the frantic thumping of his heart. The car's interior was filled with a tense silence, interrupted only by the distant sounds of tires crunching on gravel and the engine growling ominously. "It sounds like they're on our trail," the officer muttered, a flash of fear crossing his face. His knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel. "Should we move?" Al questioned, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He glanced at Tommy, who was frozen in place, eyes wide and brimming with anxiety. Before the officer could reply, a flashlight beam swept across the brush where they were hidden. The fierce light cut through the darkness, illuminating the shards of broken branches and brambles. Al's breath hitched. They were found. "Get down," the officer barked, swinging his door open and diving out. Al didn't hesitate. He grabbed Tommy's arm and pulled him low, pressing against the seat as gunfire erupted outside. Bam! The sound jolted like a thunderclap, and Tommy winced, instinctively curling into his father's side. Al felt the tremor in Tommy's small frame. "It's going to be okay. Just stay quiet," he murmured, trying to anchor his son amid the chaos swirling outside. "What do we do?" Tommy's voice was a tight whisper. "We wait for the right moment," Al replied, every muscle in his body tense. Panic surged through him, but he fought it down, forcing himself to be the brave one. They had come too far to let fear win. The officer's voice called out from the darkness, distorted but urgent. "I need backup. They're on to us." More shots rang out, and Al's heart raced with every echo. He clenched his fists, desperate to protect Tommy from harm. He felt his son tremble beside him, fear palpable in the air. "Stay close to me, Tommy," he said, drawing him closer. Suddenly, the driver's side door swung open, and another officer jumped in. "Go. We gotta move." The urgency in the stranger's voice drained the little courage Al had mustered. "We can't just sit here," Al shot back, resolve igniting within him. "We can fight. We have each other. Listen, we are surrounded." The new officer snapped, his fear translating into anger. "If we don't move now, we won't get another chance." Tommy met his father's gaze, searching for reassurance. Al saw the uncertainty and fear reflected in his son's eyes, and in that moment, resolve hardened his voice. "We can do this, Tommy. Together." With the weight of his words hanging in the air, they had to make a choice. They could wait for safety, or they could take a leap into the unknown, trusting what they had each other. Al could no longer afford to be paralyzed by fear of the past. He had to make a move. "Okay," he said, his voice resolute, as he pulled Tommy closer. "When I say go, we dash for that tree line. We'll find cover and regroup. Got it?" Tommy nodded, determination flickering like a flame in his eyes. Al's heart was pounding, his mind racing. On 3, 1, 2, 3, they burst from the car, adrenaline pumping as they sprinted for the dense trees ahead. The sounds of chaos faded behind them, lost in the rustle of leaves and pounding footfalls. But as they ran, the shadows loomed large in the darkness, a haunting reminder of their uncertain fate. Would they escape this peril, or would fate intercede once more? "Don't look back," Al called out. Just ahead, a breaking branch snapped underfoot. Fear wrapped around them like a noose. Darkness and danger were upon them. But one shadow loomed larger than the rest. The battle for their lives was only just beginning. What would it take to make it out alive? The darkness embraced them as they veered deeper into the woods, branches clawing at their clothes and skin. Al could hear his breath rushing, matching the frantic rhythm of his heart. Tommy ran just in front of him, but Al felt like he was losing him already, lost to the panic that hung over their escape. "Keep going. Don't stop," Al shouted, pushing himself to move faster. The trees shielded them, but that didn't mean they were safe. He could still hear the distant shouts and gunfire echoing behind them. Every loud crack made Tommy jump, and Al yearned for a moment of peace, a pause where he could reassure his son without the fear of something lurking just around the corner. They finally reached a small clearing, the moonlight spilling in like a gentle embrace. Al stumbled to a halt, panting heavily as he took stock of their surroundings. The trees were closer together here, the thick trunks interlaced with shadows. Al could almost hear his heart thudding in his ears, drowning out the fading sounds of the chaos. "Dad, I don't like this," Tommy gasped, eyes wide and searching. He looked ready to bolt again, the tension making his little body quake. "I know, buddy." Al crouched down to meet Tommy's gaze, putting both hands on his shoulders. "But we have to stay low and quiet. They can't find us if we don't give them a reason to look." Tommy nodded, but the uncertainty lingered. Al wished he could shield his son from all the danger, from all the fears ripping through his mind. "Do you remember what we learned about surviving in the wild?" Al continued, trying to distract him. "We need to stay calm and wait. Maybe we can find a way out of this." The boy's brow furrowed, his lip quivering slightly. "But what if they find us, Dad?" Al swallowed hard, the gravity of their situation pressing down on him like a heavy weight. "Then we'll be brave, just like we practiced." The words felt hollow as they hung between them. Bravery seemed so far away in that moment. Suddenly, the sounds of pursuit seemed closer, sharper, a rustle in the underbrush followed by an angry, shouting voice. Al's heart sank. They had to move. "Come on," he whispered, pulling Tommy close. "We have to find another way, quick." They crept through the trees, edging away from the noise. Every rustle made Tommy jump. Al caught a glimpse of his terror, and it twisted something deep inside him. He wanted nothing more than to make everything right, but events had spiraled out of control, and the worry that gripped him felt like an iron chain. They came to a steep hill, covered in leaves that crunched beneath their feet like fragile glass. Al paused, turning back to scan the woods. Shadows shifted, leaving him with an uncomfortable sense of exposure. "Dad, I'm scared," Tommy whispered. I know, Al murmured, feeling every ounce of fear that lived in his son. He pulled him closer, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on their small moment of togetherness. "But we'll be okay. Promise." As they continued to climb, heartbeats racing to a frantic drum, Al couldn't shake the feeling that this night was changing him. He was no longer just a father trying to protect his son. He was a man desperate to overcome the shadows of his past. He had to fight not just for himself but for Tommy. "Keep your eyes ahead," Al urged as they reached the top. At the crest, they stopped to survey the land. In the distance, shadows moved among the trees. Angry voices filtered through the night air, and Al's belly tightened as the realization struck this was more than just an escape. It was a fight for their lives. They would have to navigate their way through the nightmare. But how? Tommy gripped Al's hand tighter, and Al took a breath, ready to lead them into whatever awaited. Fear would not paralyze them. They would push forward, united against the darkness. He would not let Tommy face the shadows alone. "Let us find a way out, together," Al said softly, steeling himself against the uncertainty of their path. As they moved forward, the haunting sounds grew closer. The weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on Al's shoulders. They could see the lights of the distant town flickering, a beacon of hope in a sky full of night. But how far would they need to go? And who else might be waiting for them beyond the hillside? The night was still young, and their fight had only just begun. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silver glow over the trembling branches and rustling leaves. Al and Tommy pressed onward, hearts racing, feet taking them to an uncertain future. Each step felt heavy, yet hope flickered like a distant flame. "Stay close," Al whispered again, gripping Tommy's hand tighter. "We're going to get through this." Whereas just hours ago, Al's life had revolved around power and fear. Now, everything seemed focused on protecting what truly mattered, the bond with his son. As they emerged from the cover of the trees, the glow of nearby streetlights illuminated the path ahead. They were nearing a town with people ordinary lives continuing, oblivious to the storm brewing behind them. "Dad, look." Tommy pointed at a diner up ahead, its neon sign buzzing with life. "Maybe we can get help there?" "That's a good idea," Al said, heart pounding at the prospect. They had to take a chance. With a shared nod, they moved forward, the warmth of the diner a beacon of safety. The world around them felt alive, yet tension crackled like electricity between them. But the shadows were quick to follow. As they dashed toward the diner, Al glanced back. Voices grew nearer, menacing whispers drawing closer. "We need to hurry," he warned, urgency lacing his words. Inside the diner, the atmosphere shifted. The smell of fresh coffee and pastries wafted through the air, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. A few eyes turned their way, curious glances filled with concern. "What's going on?" a waitress asked, sensing the tension in Al's posture. "We just need to make a call. A safe one," Al replied hurriedly, glancing toward the door, anxiously waiting for an imminent threat. A sympathetic nod from the waitress directed them toward the phone in the corner. "Please, stay close, Tommy," Al said, a silent promise in his heart that he wouldn't let anything pull them apart again. He reached for the phone, while Tommy searched for a booth to settle in. Anxiety coiling in his stomach, Al dialed the number, his heart racing with fear and hope. He needed backup. More than that, he needed an ally. "Hello?" a voice answered, catching him by surprise briefly. Al leaned in, urgency spilling from his lips. "It's Al Capone. I need your help. They're hunting us." A slow realization dawned upon Tommy. What once felt like an inseparable name, a legacy he resented, now felt like the anchor he could rally behind. They were redefining their story. They would be more than the shadows surrounding them. Moments passed as Al spoke, eyes darting around the diner. A burst of chatter filled the space, but all he could focus on was securing their safety. "Make it quick, and I'll owe you." He hung up, thoughts racing. Turning back to Tommy, he found the boy's brow furrowed with determination. "We'll get out of this, right, Dad?" Al felt a wave of warmth crash over him. "Absolutely. Together." Tommy's smile ignited a spark in Al, a flicker of the man he used to be before the crime world consumed him. They were moving forward, not just running from danger, but embracing the unknown, hand in hand. Just as they started to breathe a little easier, the clatter of boots echoed from outside. Al's body tensed instinctively, eyes snapping towards the door. No, he thought. Not now. The front door burst open, revealing shadows roughened by the street, raucous laughter ringing hollow. The energetic vibe of the diner shifted with a heavy thump. Friends now strangers, fear washing over the patrons. "Al, we know you're in here," one of the men called out, swaggering forward, eyes sharp with menace. This time, Tommy clutched Al's arm tighter, an anchor amidst the chaos. He recognized that tone, the very reason they had fled into the night. "Stay behind me, Tommy," Al said firmly. It was a challenge now, a battle he must face for his son, to reclaim the love and life they nearly lost. He stepped forward, feeling something stir inside him, a mix of defiance and resolve. "Why don't you just leave us alone?" A snarl erupted from the men, and in that instant, Tommy saw a flicker of the man Al was fighting to become, a father prepared to protect his son. Every tense moment swirled as voices mixed with uncertainty and fear. But just as troubles closed in, something shifted. The waitress behind the counter spoke up, shielding them unexpectedly. "You pick a fight here and you'll face the law. Get out and don't come back." It stunned the men, their bravado wavering before a united front of innocent souls. The diner erupted in murmurs, support spreading through every table like wildfire. "See? "You're not the only one with power," Al said, stepping to Tommy's side, a wall of support and love woven between them. They had found not just courage in their bond, but a community rallying behind them. They moved forward, emboldened. Al felt Tommy's trust flowing into him, igniting the fire of possibility. "We're not allowing this life to define us anymore," he whispered, squeezing Tommy's hand. With a single determined glance shared, they both turned to face the entrance where shadows loomed, a symbolic line drawn in the sand. Together, they said in unison, knowing they were not walking back to the shadows of the past, but toward the light of hope, toward everything they could build anew. Finally, as they stepped into the light, the pull of the street faded behind them. The future was wide open, possibilities unfurling like flowers in spring. And in that reckoning, amidst laughter echoing in the diner and the thrill of fresh opportunity, Al vowed he would fight not just for survival, but for the family he now believed in. And as they forged ahead, Tommy smiled brightly, heart swelling with pride. They were ready to reclaim their lives and redefine what a father and son can truly be. Don't wait another second. You need to subscribe now to catch this inspiring journey and all the exclusive stories coming up next. Hit that like button immediately to support our community. Your encouragement means everything. We want to hear from you, so comment below with your feelings about this conclusion. And share this powerful message with at least 5 friends right now. They need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand how important your support is.